Hey everybody, it's me and I'm here with an overview of next month's Great Artist lesson. We will be continuing our famous artist series for our first and second graders, and they will be learning about an artist by the name of Franz Marc. I'm going to give you an overview of the lesson and then talk about the project itself. All right, as we do with every great artist lesson, we start with their childhood and we talk a little bit about Franz Marc, where he was born, and the fact that at the age of 10, he traveled without his family, by the way, to France and Italy to study theology. But early on, even before the age of 10, he had already shown some great skill and interest in art. On this slide, we talk about how Franz Marc, while he was in Paris, saw Picasso and Gauguin and found their use of color and shape inspiring. In fact, it was an inspiration for his continuing series of horses. And if you look on the right side of the slide here, this is a ginormous list of a bunch of titles that include horses. He had a whole series of horse paintings that he did, and this isn't even the complete list, but this kind of goes along with our art project that they're doing at the end of the lesson because it has to do with a horse. Why wouldn't it have anything to do with the horse? That he loved them. He had so many paintings about them. On this slide, we talk about how he left France and went back to Munich, and he found himself at the age of 21 with a group of artists who all loved using bright and unusual colors for things. And they formed a group called Der Blaue Reiter, which means the Blue Rider. And this slide is about those artists and why and how they came up with that name. Before you get to this slide, you just want to have a little brief discussion and ask the kids, what does the color yellow mean to you? When you see the color red, what does that color say? What does the color green say when you see it? Just to kind of have a discussion that isn't motivated by the slide that you see here. And you will get some really interesting thoughts and ideas as to what certain colors mean to certain people. It is really all about personal perspective, right? So for Franz Marc, he was all about expressing himself with color. And this is a little snapshot of what he believed these different colors meant, what blue meant to him and yellow meant to him and red meant to him. And he had a very big love of nature, and he was very famous for painting animals, all these really radical and interesting colors. For him, it wasn't about painting them realistically, it was about painting them in the way that he felt about them. Well, this discussion about color leads us into this slide, and it's all about expressing ourselves with color and having a feeling about something. So this is where we introduce the kids to the concept of what expressionism is, and the fact that Franz Marc was a German expressionist. So we just kind of give them a little nutshell of what that means about painting with emotions and feelings. It's not about being realistic, it's about having feeling about what it is that they're painting. Well, the kids always want to know when our artist died, and for Mr. Franz Marc here, duty called, and he joined the army, and sadly at the age of 36, he died in battle. By his side was a sketchbook that was filled with all these very dark and somewhat scary depictions of war. But it isn't what he was famous for. He wasn't famous for the dark. He was famous for all the bright and expressive paintings that he did of all the beautiful animals. So after we've talked about Franz Marc himself and his life, we then have a little bit of an art talk where we talk about the art prints that are hung around the room. They're paintings of Franz Marc. And we just ask the kids how the different paintings make them feel. And then we remind them that when it comes to painting, that the sky doesn't always have to be blue and the cat doesn't always have to be brown, but it's all about a world of imagination, and you can use any color. And it's really about when you look at these paintings and you look at a cloud or you look at a cat, it's not about how they actually look, but about how you feel about the cloud or the cat or the dog. And that is going to tie us, this discussion will tie us to the art project that they'll be doing, because we are going to want them to use colorful, very colorful, bold, and unrealistic colors to do their art project. So this is a fun discussion that kind of leads them down that path where we want them to get to paint their own Franz Marc inspired piece. All right, let's get into the project itself. This month they're going to be working on a Franz Marc inspired horse. It's so cute. Look at how cute it is. It's so bright and colorful and it moves. I think the kids are just going to love these. With that said, a project like this, because of course it deals with paint, it's going to be messy. But here are a few tips for you. One thing that I might do when I do this lesson is, instead of having the kids sit at their desk while I do the lesson portion, I might come in ahead of time, tell the teacher that the kids are going to want to have their desks cleared, but come in ahead of time and set everything up on their desks and have them sit on the floor in front of you while you do the lesson. If you have the ability to do that, I think that's a great solution for this. It'll cut down on some time. But if you don't, then there's some other things that we can do. Of course, because we're dealing with paint, it is going to be messy, like I said. And so one of the things that they're going to need to do before they even paint is they're going to need to cut out the horse. There's going to be some pre-printed templates for them to use, and they'll cut out their horse. And because the pieces are going to be cut out ahead of time by them, once they go to paint, that paint's going to get everywhere. So there's going to be some recycled newspaper in the art cart, and we're going to want to lay that all out on their desks to save their desks from all that big paint mess. But we will want them to, again, cut it out. Then while they're cutting it out, something that you're going to want to do is, we don't want to load up all the paper plate palettes with all the various types of paint that we have. We really want them to think about, just like Franz Marc did, what is it that the message is that they're trying to send with this horse? Is it a serene horse? Is it a robust horse? Is it a powerful horse? And whatever colors they choose will dictate what the message is that they're sending about that horse. So we want to be able to walk around while they're cutting the pieces out and just say, hey, you know what, can you pick 4 colors, put 4 dime size amounts of color, because paint goes a really long way, put 4 dime size amount of paint on each paper plate palette, and they can always add additional colors, you know, as they go on, but let's just start with 4. Ask that they do that while they're cutting out their horse pieces. And then once they've cut out their horse pieces, of course, we want them to put their name on the back, but then they can go ahead and paint it. Now, a tip about the painting is that we don't want the paint to be muddled. We don't want it to take away from the vibrant colors that they are. So we want to tell the kids, when they paint, they want to put the paint colors side by side. They want them to be a very big contrast, that we want them to stand out. And if they're mixing the colors together, they're going to get muddled. And Franz Marc laid his colors next to each other so they were very vibrant. They popped a lot. All right, so once they've painted their horses, let it dry for a little bit. This is optional. What they can do, there will be some pre-cut pieces of yarn and some glue, and they can glue yarn to its mane, or they can glue yarn, different colors of yarn onto its tail, but this is totally optional. Once they're finished decorating their horse and adding polka dots or stripes, whatever it is that they want to do, adding yarn if that's what they'd like to do as well, we might need to let it dry for a little bit, and then we can, after it's dried for a little bit, we can go around and punch holes in the various polka dots. There's a polka dot on each piece that will tell you where to punch the hole so that everything fits together nicely. And then you pass out 2 brads to each kid, and they will lay their legs, one in front, one in back, and they'll just put the little brad through it. And that is their little Franz Marc colorfully inspired horse. All right, well, that's it for our lesson and our project this month. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, of course, you could send me an email, pick up the phone. I am here for you. Otherwise, I hope you find it to be a fun and successful project and lesson, and happy creating.